to our audience for this very special edition of Live Guest Interview. We have a very special past client of mine and important leader in the community, teacher of art at Ripon High School, Mr. Dakota Williams-Bauer, who is also a very talented artist in his own right. And he does sell his art, he does display his art, and maybe we can have one of his pieces added to this posting if we're so lucky, or whatever other shows that you have you can share with our audience. And so without further ado, I'd like to also reintroduce my co-host on this show, Mr. Daniel Solino.
Nice to see you guys once again.
I'm Catherine Knightsby, realtor, and this is Mr. Dakota Bowers, teacher. And thank you so much for joining us. It's so good to see you again.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, so we have a series of questions, and Daniel's going to start off with the first 4 questions. I'll ask the last one, and feel free to embellish or answer in any way you feel comfortable. Yeah. So take it away.
Okay, Dakota, it's nice meeting you and seeing that, or hearing that you are a teacher at Ripon High School for art, because, you know, in this community, I feel like in Modesto, we have a very strong art community coming with graffiti night, and then we have the Gallo Center of Art. So I feel like we have a very strong art culture here that we don't necessarily bring up or talk about enough.
Yeah, I mean, Modesto, like if you get into it, like there's plenty of things that you could do in the area to present your art. I would say the one issue is getting in. Finding a restaurant that will allow you to maybe display some of your art, and you know, the galas, because you know there's a couple different art galleries in the downtown Modesto area, and some of them you have to be part of their group. You have to pay to be in. You have to pay to have each piece in, and you know, if you're an artist, you're either starving or you're doing something else to provide for that. But I will say though, there's art everywhere in Modesto, like McHenry in downtown Modesto. It's what helps kind of make the downtown area more likable, if you can say that.
And it brings it to that international level of like New York or something, you know, where you feel like it's...
Yeah, I mean, like, if you think about it, the downtown Modesto and McHenry, it got famous for the one Steven Spielberg movie that I'm trying to think of.
Graffiti, Daniel mentioned it.
Yeah.
American Graffiti.
And that's what a lot of the artwork in downtown Modesto is like classic cars and stuff. So it's kind of like planting itself as what it is. I think the art community in Modesto is basically the thing that's keeping downtown Modesto like alive and functioning.
That's so interesting. I have some friends in the title company who have a classic car and involved with the whole Latino kind of like lowrider, if you will, car craze. And I know, living in San Francisco, I was born in the Mission District and I lived there for many years. As it became an artist, it was an artist community when I moved there. It became a little more upscale. By the time I left, it was very expensive. Probably bumped a lot of artists out. They ended up going to Hunters Point and places like that. But I really learned to admire and appreciate the car community as an art community. To be honest with you, I really see it that way.
Oh yeah, the classic cars, the lowriders and stuff. I mean, like the artwork that goes into the cars itself, choosing the colors, trying to figure out the tires, doing the pinstripe. Pinstripe in itself is an art form that honestly not a lot of people know how to do anymore, because you can't machine do it. You have to hand paint onto the car.
You mean the trims, the lines around the trims? Is that what pinstripe?
Like if you look at a nice lowrider car, usually it has some nice pinstripe. It's like line work, different color line work that's painted onto the actual car.
Yeah. And then there's the whole thing about hubcaps too. Like there's a whole hubcap community. I had no idea. Like hubcap rims
Yeah.
are a whole
Rim-
other thing.
Depending on the car and what they want, because usually they're the smaller tires, so that way the lowriders can do the hydraulics and everything, and then like the different colors and how it represents off the car.
Amazing. That leads into the next question.
Yeah, definitely. So my next question, funny enough, I want to talk to you about was what kind of art style do you necessarily prefer or specialize in?
Yeah, what
You're
about
talking
your
about
style?
car decals, such. What do you prefer?
So my personal style, what I like to do, I like to deal in the subconscious and also with like think of like Salvador Dali, like weird stuff, like melting stuff, putting stuff together that doesn't necessarily make any sense. So and I like pencil, pen and ink, but I dab in a little bit of everything. Like I like oil paint, I like acrylic paint.
Oh, really?
I've done portraits in both pencil, ink, oil. I like doing ink. I like doing a stipple,
Dots, small
which is
dots.
like the small dots.
Shadow with small dots.
So this is a print.
Yes, thank goodness you got your work. Thank goodness. Thank you for that.
So like this is a print of one of my stipple drawings, right? So like it's a full image, okay?
Oh, it is very.
But it's all dots.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I
Right.
think art.
So like this style I like doing because it's almost therapeutic, because like I said, I teach, and so like sometimes I'll do this while I'm teaching, like because it's something that I subconsciously am thinking about doing off to the side while I'm helping a kid, or just doing something that I don't need to necessarily focus on 110%. I also have, so when I say like unconscious work, I like to
You mean
deal.
subconscious? Do you mean subconscious?
Yeah, subconscious. So what I'll do is if it's pencil, I'll scribble all over the paper. If it's Conte, like pastels, I'll do the same thing. Or if it's oil paint, I'll just throw the paint on the canvas, let it dry, and look at it later. So kind of think of like looking at clouds and seeing imagery in the clouds, or like if you ever look at drywall and you see images and stuff, like that's how I keep my mind like sharp and think about different things. So here's like a print of one of my pastel drawings. And it's called Codeine Sickness, because when I drew it, I was sick and I was taking a cough syrup that I didn't realize that I was actually allergic to.
Oh,
and so I broke it up in a hive. So it has like so I was eating those nasty suckers. I had mucus. I was taking like all kinds of medication, and so all the pills in there are the medications I was taking. And so like that's stuff that I like to kind of play with.
It's a little bit reflecting off the plastic. Yeah, that's better. So it's very cartoony. I see stuff as being like,
sometimes,
a dark cartoon. Am I reading that right? Like I see it as kind of like, because I'm a huge fan of early cartoons, like very early cartoons, like pre-Disney cartoons, Disney, right? Like.
Well, yeah, like I like doing cartoons. I like doing comic book characters.
Yeah.
So, because these are like older prints. So like, as an artist, you play around with having multiple prints and stuff. So like, I like comic book characters, but I also like just like dark imagery as well. This one's like a hyper realistic stipple that I did for a commission.
Oh, what? Oh, wow. Oh my God. What was that for? Like, oh, wow.
So this is The Godfather and Scarface together, even though technically if they're in the movie together, but just not Scarface, but I combined the two characters.
Wow. They appeared, Pacino and what's his name?
Al Capone.
No, Pacino and the actor. Was it Pacino and the actor's name? The two actors have been in movies together, though. They have.
Yeah.
They were in the whole Godfather series together.
Yeah, so I mean, like, there's stuff like that. I like doing printmaking, which is like, like intaglio lithography. Lithography is fun because you're drawing on the big stone. I joke about it because you have to be pretty strong to move the stone because the stones are about 400 or 500 pounds.
Oh, yeah.
So like this is a print of one of my lithography prints. So basically you're drawing on the stone with a type of green pen. So instead of just having one art piece, you can make multiple art pieces. So generally, like if you ever go to a museum and it says it's a print, on the bottom left or the bottom right, it'll say like one of however many that artist made prints of. So this is a photocopy of the actual print.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm looking at a print right now in this room that I did. It's much like you. I think it was the dry print where you take the stick pen and you scratch onto the plate.
Yeah, so that's if it was on a metal plate, that was intaglio. So yeah, the little needle. Mm-hmm.
I love that department, the printmaking department, the Art Institute. Yeah, that was a very high level work that you just showed us. I think that was top level. That looks to me like a really high level of quality.
Yeah, that was my last year at Stan State.
Oh, you were in class or you were teaching, or you were?
That was my printmaking class that I did.
Oh, wow! You can't see in our room today, but I bought some work from a lady that taught there for many years, Gunnarsson. Mm-hmm. Her daughter is my friend, and right before she passed away, I bought 2 of her works, originals. She taught there for many years. There's actually an amazing high level of talent, I think, at that place, what I could assess.
Stan State has got it. It gets a bad credit in the sense it's like, oh, you can go to Stan State or you can go to Berkeley or you can go to LA or whatever. But Stan State is actually getting the department's growing, and the level of artists that are there are doing great work, and then they're getting even more equipment to do what they want to do. I will say that I was kind of upset that they got 3D printers after I graduated, so I didn't play with that. But it's a good base program, so you can go and get your BFA there, Bachelor's of Fine Arts, and then it's a great stepping point to go to. I had friends go to Hawaii and get full rides and a job over at the art gallery over there. I've had friends go and get full rides at the college in New York, and some in LA. I mean, it's a good stepping stone to where like you don't get into debt, like you don't have to pay.
You can park, you can use the restroom, you have a friendly environment, it's a beautiful campus. All the things that you in an urban center you don't have.
Oh yeah, and what was nice was, I mean, art majors are different than other majors because a lot of times we would be there till like midnight, 1 o'clock. The campus security would show up because they didn't understand why people were still there.
That's art for
you.
you.
We were eating pizza and trying to make our prints because like we had to make X amount of prints, or we had to finish the stone and prep it and all this other stuff. So.
It's exciting, kind of like the rock industry or something. So we try to keep it to a minimum, even though our guests are so fascinating. We'd love to go on and on, but we're concerned people don't want to watch hours and hours of us, whatever we think is fascinating.
No, that's fine.
What's your next question, Daniel?
So my next question for you, Dakota, is how do you define yourself, as a teacher first or an artist first? Seeing as you kind of had experience with both, what would you necessarily like to be defined as?
That's kind of hard because once you become a teacher, then like when you see people outside, or if you're I would consider myself an artist first because I've done it for so long, going through school, going to MJC and then going to Stan and all the hours put into it and stuff. And then the teaching aspect of it was more an afterthought in the sense of like the classes that you had to take for it and everything else. And like the only reason I would say a teacher first is because when I see kids around the high school range and stuff, like in a store or something like that. When you become a teacher, you start seeing key things, like you can kind of see what the kids are going through at that point in time and stuff like that. So it's kind of an artist first, but teacher like instantly after.
Interesting. Yeah, they usually tell you when you go to art school to become a teacher. That's what they told me, to become a teacher. So,
well, because I mean, you can go to art school, get a degree, and then they'll be like, become an art teacher, because what else are you going to do? Because it's either that, or you could struggle selling your art, or you could go and work for a company doing the type of artwork you don't like. Mm-hmm. I mean, like, I thought about going into doing comic books, because I love comic books, but the idea of having to do repetitive comic book panels drove me nuts.
Yeah. It's true. It's so true. I knew people like that. I had a friend at art school, and he wasn't in art school. Him and his friend would come there to be around us and to participate in our events. But he was doing those prints of flowers for hotels or banks. Mm-hmm. And he felt tired and compromised.
Yeah. That's the struggle, is like, there's plenty of jobs in the art field that you could go to, but they're not all guaranteed. I mean, even teaching wise, I mean, one of the first interviews I did for a job, the principal said, "I would love to hire you." He said, "But the funny thing is that our teachers never move up. They never leave. That once they find a school they like, they stay there until they retire. Like, they don't want to be administration." I would never want to be a principal, vice principal and stuff like that.
Yeah, you're not a career teacher.
It's exactly, like, I came into teaching to teach art, and that's it. I don't want to do all the higher up stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, perfect. Got it. Okay, so did you ask about when you began learning art? No, so Daniel had a question about when you began learning about art. I know your parents. I know they're very supportive. How did this journey begin for you about art?
Well, I always loved art. I've taken classes for art since 6th grade, all the way through high school. Like, my senior year of high school, I was voted most artistic.
Yeah.
I never stopped. And then when I went to JC, one of the first classes that I took, it was a health class, and the teacher said, "Do something you love for 50 years, not something you're going to hate to go to." And I always joked, because my mother always said, "You need to be a teacher." And I was like, no, it's not worth it. Like, I want to make money. And then after that class, I was like, I wonder if I can teach art. And I started like looking up classes at JC that I could start kind of going toward. And then basically from there, my mom kind of just helped direct me to what I needed to do to take the classes that I needed.
She's a very big picture person. Like, she really...
Visualize.
Yeah, which was also annoying, because it was like one of those "I told you so" moments.
I could see that with your mom, because she's so hands-on, and she's so caring. I could see that, but I also understand, as I've been in this community longer, that there are people like that. We met somebody recently like that, Deborah Turner, who really understands the community, understands what works, understands how to proceed forward. I couldn't say good enough things about your parents that way.
It definitely helped get to where I needed to be.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm glad you were able to take the advice. And it's true also about artistic talent, because I was one of those people too. I could draw you the way you look from day one. My dad had gone to art school, runs kind of in family, and it's kind of like it's part of you from the very beginning. So that's it. Daniel, you go ahead, take it away for the last one, since I took your question.
It's no problem. So, Dakota, my last question for you was that I wanted to see, so that our viewers best understand, how do you relate your work to the international art field?
How do you see your art placed? Like, if you were to...
So, like, if I put it...
international show in Germany, how would you explain your work or see it as fitting into that show?
Basically, there would have to be an explanation of like what I was going through at the point of time when I was making the art piece, because a lot of my stuff looks dark and luminous sometimes, or it could be colorful and joking, but it depends on what I was feeling at the time. So like, okay, my stipple that I did here, right? I completed this the last 2 months of teaching during the COVID, like online, half kids in class, half kids out, having all these different meetings and back and forth with the mask mandates and stuff. I was losing my mind. So like, it's called Beautiful Death, because basically I was trying to get to the end of the school year without just losing my mind. And so I love the cliche of skull and roses. So I always like, when doing pieces, I force to challenge myself. So skulls are very hard, like to get the correct angles and the teeth and stuff. And then hands, like especially like skeleton hands. So what did I do? I put a skull and skeleton hands. And then I added roses as filler, and also the idea that the body is buried in a rose garden with like some mushrooms and a crow, but it's beautifully dying, like you know. So like between the death of the body gives the life to the rose trees, and they turn out beautiful. So like basically like the deeper and deeper meaning of what I was going through at that point in time.
Wow, that's so interesting. I was just watching a documentary about the Grateful Dead, you know, all their iconography and all their artwork. Turns out that Garcia's dad had died when he was very young, and he kind of internalized all that morbidity. And that's why he had all that skulls, all those skulls. It looks like a Grateful Dead kind of a piece.
It'd be like a gig poster.
Like a gig poster, yeah, like a gig poster. Yeah, your work looks a little like gig posters too sometimes.
Yeah.
There was a magazine back in the 60s and 70s that my dad used to sell at the bookstore. He actually was arrested for selling it. It was slightly pornographic, actually. Controversy. You're not that way, but it looks like that kind of. I think it was called Snap or something. I can't remember, but it was like a cool 70s with the bell bottoms and the whole, you know.
Yeah. Well, yeah, a lot of people look at the human body as like bad and have to censor it and stuff, but like when you're in the art field, you almost get numb to it, especially in college, because I mean every other class has a naked
person you're drawing.
Yeah. And it has different ages of bodies, which is really interesting, because like you look at the beauty no matter what throughout the ages. So it's kind of an interesting time.
It's true, there's so much of that in art, but it depends on what you focus on and how you manipulate it. Wow, so I'm sure we've passed the 15 minutes, as we always do. Our shows are way too long. Yeah, but we love our guests, and we think these shows are fascinating. So like us, you know, like our shows, make comments about our shows. If you also follow up with Dakota Bowers' artwork, look for his work and follow up with his local shows. And we would love it if you would actually share with us when you have shows. We'd love to go to the show. Wouldn't we love to go to the show? We'd love to go to the show. And so thank you to our guests for joining us on this wonderful edition with Mr. Teacher Dakota Williams Bauer. And thank you so much for joining us, Dakota, and thanks for being our past clients, and hopefully reach out to your friends and family and all our guests, friends and family. We're always looking to help you with real estate. So once again, I would ask you to subscribe to our channel and join us on the next episode of Live Guest Interview. So thank you so much for joining us. I'm beginning to see the light.